Undead and Married is a romantic vampire cozy mystery and is book one in Andy Lowe's Blood Bond Agency series. The series is published by Squabbling Sparrows Press and is also available in ebook and paperback.
Chapter 13. With Lilith off unearthing anything she could on Sebastian and Didi, having returned to reception, Eva sat at her desk. She needed to get Dominik back into the agency, to get a handle on his ideal partner. Other than her, that was. Despite being able to picture his completed form when she closed her eyes, his responses had been lackluster. Was this because she'd shut herself off from him, relying on the bespelled ink to do its job? Or was it because she was too busy drowning in the depths of his dark brown eyes to notice? Merely thinking about them was enough to have her heart close to double digits. This had her taking a calming breath, despite having no desperate need for oxygen. As with all vampire-born, she required little in the way of H2O or even O positive. Her body ran the same as any human, just slowly. If not for this, her lifespan would be closer to 100 years instead of. She wasn't sure of the upper limit, with no one in her extended family ever dying of old age. Beheadings, staking, and even immolation were the causes listed, never peacefully in their sleep. After another unnecessary breath, Eva picked up the phone on her grandmother's desk and dialed Dominik's number. It was as well she could visualize that form as much as she could. Without that, the only way she could make contact would be to send him a letter or call unannounced at Castle Ration. And not in a million years could she or would she do that. If Natalia Zilonka were to discover a De Silva on the premises, Eva would end up as another fatality in the family records. Nope, not going there. The shudder that hit her was violent enough that her fingers slipped from the dial and she had to start the call all over again. The moment she heard ringing at the other end, she moved. She was too keyed up to remain seated. Her usual practice would be to spend the time waiting for her call to be answered by marching back and forth. With her using her grandmother's old-fashioned phone, she was as good as tethered to the desk, preventing much movement on her part. With the clunky handset tight against her ear, Dominik's deep voice resonated in her head, sending shivers down her spine and causing goosebumps to rise on her arms. She needed to overcome her infatuation, if she couldn't control her physical reactions to him when simply saying hello. Count Zilonka, it's Eva De Silva from BBA. Eva opened her mouth to continue, but no words came out. She was unsure how to proceed, having not thought this through as carefully as she should. She hadn't thought it through at all. You found someone? Already? Dominik's voice increased in volume, which was helpful because the music thumping away in the background made it tricky to hear him. Eva struggled to answer, transfixed as she was both by his voice and the music. No. We need a few more details. Are you able to call into the agency this evening? There was no response, to the point Eva was about to repeat herself. No can do. I'm in the middle of something. Eva took the receiver away from her ear and stared at it. He couldn't be serious. He was putting what sounded like a party ahead of finding a life partner? Could her initial impression, that he wasn't serious about getting married, be correct? What else do you need to know? His words came through with the music turned off or him having moved to another room. Why can't you ask me over the phone? This was interesting. Eva's BS meter was sparking. He was lying to her again, although she wasn't sure about what or why. I can't. We prefer all our interactions to be face-to-face. For security reasons. Security? I thought the agency was beyond reproach. Are you saying this isn't so? Eva was thrown. If he'd asked her 2 nights ago, she would have been able to reassure him. With the Chronicle stolen and the police questioning her about the murders, she was having trouble answering him without telling a lie. Perhaps it would be best if you came in so we can discuss your quest in much greater detail. Look, it doesn't suit. Eva cut him off before he could throw further excuses at her. In that case, we wish you all the best with your. As she had just done, he cut her off. You're dumping me? His tone, as incredulous as it was, said this never happened. I wouldn't say that, Count Zilonka. However, we pride ourselves on finding our clients their perfect match, and if we can't do that because of a lack of information, then we. Eva left the rest unsaid while crossing the fingers of both hands, even the one holding the heavy receiver. Fine, he snapped. I'll be there as soon as I can. There were no niceties to close the call, with it taking Eva a moment to comprehend he wasn't there anymore. Great, now she knew he would visit the agency. She just didn't know when. As soon as I can could mean 10 minutes, an hour, 3 days, or even a month, given that man's social life. She would phone him back, but not even she was that brave. She was still staring at the handpiece when Lilith stormed into her office, her battered laptop gripped to her chest like it was a lifeline. Didi was right behind her. On seeing the horror on the young Welshwoman's face, all thoughts of Dominik and what he was up to vanished. What is it? Eva hung up the phone. This had to be about the V-Match software. It was that or Lilith hadn't got her hands on Raphael's funds. What is it? It's Sebastian, said Lilith without fanfare. Eva waved her hand in the air. I'll need more than that. What? Oh right, sorry. It was Sebastian who took the chronicle. Eva glanced from Lilith over to Didi to find the ancient retainer looking as mystified as Eva felt. Perhaps if you start at the beginning. Lilith was about to speak when Eva held up her hand, forestalling her. Leave nothing out. I don't care how small it seems to you. Lilith huffed out in frustration before throwing herself into the visitor's chair. Wait, not yet. Didi disappeared, only to reappear seconds later wheeling her office chair before her. Okay, out with it. It turned out Lilith had also installed one of her small gizmos in reception, one that Georgia was unaware of if Lilith's demeanor was anything to go by. She opened her laptop and swung it around to face Didi and Eva. She then hit the enter key. Eva grasped what she was looking at. But despite watching the recording from beginning to end, she was none the wiser. A quick peek at Didi, and she knew she wasn't alone. What? Lilith looked at them in disbelief. You don't see it? Eva shook her head, not taking her eyes off the screen as the footage played again. I can see myself and you too, and I can pick up on Sebastian and Dominik, but what does that prove? Lilith tutted loud enough to make a statement. Ignore the images on screen. She pointed at the jumble of numbers zipping by next to the on-screen viewing panel. Look at these. Eva watched the panel while the footage ran through again. It wasn't until the third time that she spotted what Lilith had noticed already. Our energy signatures. They're all different. They sure are, and the energy profile for that creep from across the square matches that of our thief. Eva couldn't decide if this was good news or bad. On the plus side, they knew who had the chronicle, but it was bad that it was Sebastian. He would know how vital the information was. And without their records, the agency was as good as powerless to complete any matches. If this was all he had taken it for, then Eva could relax to a certain degree. It was whether he had something else in mind that worried her more. History told of men making money from war. Would that be the case even if they'd started the war? Who was she kidding? Of course it would, but only if the one who possessed the military intelligence had the actual intelligence to use it. So that ruled Sebastian out then. Of greater concern was that the owner of Love Bites would know Dominik had been to see them, and was looking to get hitched. What had Dominik said about keeping quiet, that he was about to select his bride and not Natalia? This could cause huge issues. It could even lead to blackmail. Again, who was she kidding? Without a doubt, Sebastian would use it for blackmail. Now all she had to do was tell Dominik about the theft. Easy, right? Chapter 14.
Dominik slid his phone back into his pocket, wondering what the hell Eva De Silva was playing at. He didn't want to go back to the agency to get more dirt. So what was she after? Whatever it wasn't something he would share over the phone. If he could finish up here in the next hour, he'd call in and see her. A lazy grin made itself at home, as he expected how that meeting would go. Despite his mind not being on the task, he coerced the bouncer into letting him back into the club. It wouldn't have been an issue, but for his disguise. If he looked like himself, The bouncer would beg him to go in, as would all the human women in the queue behind the velvet rope. However, he wasn't there to fill his social calendar. He was following Sebastian Draco. The guy was up to no good. Recruiting would be Dominik's guess, although meal prep might be a better descriptor. Dominik knew firsthand that the owner of Love Bites was always on the lookout for fresh blood. His clients demanded it, their preference being human over anything bovine, ovine, or synthetic. Back on the main floor of the club, he found the noise and the flashing lights were overwhelming. But for his earbuds and dark glasses, Dominik wouldn't have been able to cope with the assault on his vampiric senses. He wasn't sure how Sebastian did it. The guy wasn't wearing dark glasses or sporting earplugs of any kind. Could it be his senses were dull compared to Dominik's own? The guy was nouveau sang, so it was possible. He also knew Sebastian couldn't move during the day. Dominik could, although he had to be careful about it. After edging up to stand behind Sebastian, he listened in on the vampire's conversation with the cute human he'd latched onto. The girl would be lucky to make it to 5 feet on a good day. Dominik also thought she was small enough that if she had a pint or two siphoned, she'd be out cold. Those blood orgies Sebastian organized would see the petite blonde drained before you could say appetizer. Then the girl said something that had Dominik zeroing in on the conversation again. "We have nothing like this in Florida." "You don't know how right you are," said Sebastian. He tucked an errant curl behind the girl's ear, with her melting in response to his tenderness. Dominik doubted her response would be the same if she knew the handsome man showering her with attention was checking out her carotid artery. Dominik had no issue if they were aware and willing, but there wasn't a chance in hell he was letting Sebastian take advantage of another innocent woman. Even if this girl survived, she'd never be the same. Not after being fed on by a slew of hungry vamps. The overwhelming sense of shame at having surrendered was hard for some to bear. It wouldn't matter that they had no say either way. Only this wasn't what was happening of late, with none of the women having taken their own life. Without a mark on the bodies, the cause was obvious thanks to their pale, deflated state. All Dominik needed to determine now was whether the trail led back to Love Bites or the gorgeous Eva. If he wanted to intervene tonight, he couldn't wait any longer. The blonde American, plastered against Sebastian, now had her head tipped to the side. She was all but inviting him to sink his teeth in. His mind made up, Dominik lifted his shield enough to allow him to release his power. He then sent every atom at the back of Sebastian's head, filling the vampire's weak mind with instructions on what he needed to do. The results were instantaneous. Sebastian shoved the girl to one side and staggered puppet-like out of the club without a backward glance. Her disappointment was such that Dominik flooded her mind with images of an amazing night she'd never forget. But this was for good reasons rather than bad. A series of slow dances and him buying her a couple of drinks went a long way toward helping blur the lines between real and imagined. It had taken longer than expected, leaving him no time to visit the blood bond agency. It didn't matter that he could stay up past daybreak. He knew from scanning the agency's premises during the day that Eva was a day sleeper. Whether this was from preference or necessity was yet to be determined. He knew also that when dealing with a woman of her caliber, he needed all the help he could get. Time for him to go back to the castle to discuss tonight's events with Magda and Luca. They'd know how he should proceed, other than with great care, that is. Dominik wasted no time getting back home, dealing with the speed limit as if it was a guideline rather than a rule. He was lucky to make it back without running into Captain Hugo or any of his minions, especially with him running low on energy after the number he did on Sebastian and his intended victim. Rather than scan for the others, he took the stairs 6 at a time, traversing the several flights in the blink of an eye. He knew that at that hour, they'd be on the top floor, getting ready to retire for the day. Like him, they didn't need to. But as with any newly married couple, they were never late to bed. Magda. Luca. "We are in here," called out Magda from the receiving room next to their bedchamber. "Great. I wanted to update you on what I saw tonight." He rattled through events at the club, and how he'd intercepted Sebastian from taking advantage of a visitor to their town. Magda's brow wrinkled in concentration. "Perhaps he is the one. I don't know. While I was at the club, I got a call from Eva at the blood bond agency. She wants me to go back in, said there was more she needed to know to find me a match. Magda straightened. And she was lying. Magda bared her fangs. Natalia always said the De Silva family was not to be trusted. Luca burst out laughing. And you take her word for it? Luca dragged Magda into the depths of the couch, his arm slung around her shoulder. There's a reason the authorities locked her up at All Hallows Keep. Dominik readied himself to leave. I'll call into the agency tomorrow. You'll be on your guard, cautioned Magda. Indeed. I'm all set to visit the dark forest, to see the witch who answers to Wodelia. I'll get her to bolster the ward Frankie Bonnie placed on me. Magda broke into a wide smile at the mention of her one loyal girlfriend, but this soon faded. And Frankie, she wouldn't help you. I phoned her, but all I got was a recording left by Zane saying she was off visiting her Aunt Betty. Magda tilted her head to the side, thinking before answering him. It is a shame. But Wodelia, she can help you with the ward. She can. I've already checked. Even though the magical barrier was going to be reinforced by a different witch, it would be enough to protect him, but without Eva noticing. It would also allow him to lie to her, undetected. Then again, there was something about the way she looked at him that made him want to confess everything, not just about the murders, but about his deepest secrets. And even worse, his desires where her delectable body was concerned.
If you've enjoyed these chapters, we'd love it if you could give them a thumbs up. And if you'd like to continue the story, you can subscribe and tap the bell to be notified when the next chapter is released.